I suspect a lot of you that are watching this video have been working with being more authentic, being more yourself, being more true to yourself, perhaps speaking your truth. It's a lot of variations, and we talk about it in different ways, but it's like being, true to yourself and finding, who you are, what you're feeling, and then acting from that place. And I think this is one of the most important things you can do spiritually or at the human level, that there is. And it takes a lot of courage to be yourself, especially in our culture where it's not always honored. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today is so, you've invested a lot of energy and time and lessons and work, a lot of inquiry, whatever you've done to get more in touch with yourself. It could be therapy, it could be coaching, it could be, you've done meditation, you've done all these cool spiritual practices, and you've found a way to be more authentic and to express who and what you are more directly, more earnestly, more honestly, and you've stood in your power more. And this is so cool. Now here's the thing that goes with that is often when we are more honest and we are more authentic, people are going to have issues with that. Now, why would that be? It doesn't make, it's like we would think if I just am myself, people would accept me more, right? And maybe they will, hopefully they do. However, when you're more authentic, well, one of the things it does, it may point out to people that you're relating to that they may not be being authentic. Okay? Or perhaps you're a little less, you're a little more honest and you're a little less people-pleasing than you used to be. Perhaps you're more in your power and you're not tolerating people's nonsense or control issues as much as you used to, which are all great things. Ultimately, it's great for the people you're hanging out with too. However, it may not be appreciated. Okay, and so a lot of people are going to give you signals that they liked you better the other way, right? I mean, they're going to give you signals that it's not okay to be who you are. And they may not say this. Some people might say it directly, and some people might just kind of hint at it. They're often doing it unconsciously. In other words, they don't know. In fact, if they knew they were doing it, they'd probably be horrified. They don't maybe know they're doing it, but because they're not comfortable, the most effective way to not look at their own inauthenticity, or the most effective way to change themselves, look at themselves, is to talk you out of being your authentic self. And they will have possibly very creative ideas about how you should be and how you should not be. And they may try to change you or control you and kind of talk you out of who you are, and so it's really important to be aware of this and to kind of stick to your guns. It's like, no, I love hanging out with you, but this is how I am. There's a lot of implied things, like they might say, well, the way that you do this doesn't work for me, or this hurt my feelings, okay? Or you do this and then that triggers me, okay? And most of us that are watching this, we're pretty accommodating people, so there's a tendency, it's like, wow, bummer, if I'm being that way, I don't want to trigger people, right? And of course we don't. However, there's a lot of subtle things that are, and some not so subtle, that are coming in, and it's almost implied that, dude, you need to change. That's what they may be saying. It's like, this is not cool with me, so therefore, implied, you need to change. Because there's kind of two parts. One part is the way you are doesn't work for me, or it's that's honest. The way you are doesn't work for me. However, there's usually this implied, like, and I'll know you are respecting me if you change in the way I want you to change. And that's the part that's a little less clean. I've even said to people, I hear that the way I am is not comfortable. However, I don't want to change it. And the person would be like, well, you're not respecting me then because you're not changing. I've requested that I'm not comfortable with how you are, but you're not changing it. And I'm like, well, you may see it as disrespectful, but I've worked pretty hard to be authentic and to find out who I am, and I want to choose. Now, if we're going to hang out, if we're going to go out, if we're significant others, if we're good friends, if we're coworkers, we're business partners, if we're going to spend a lot of time together, certainly let me know if there's a behavior or there's something I'm doing that's not working. I'll see if I can find a different way to express my authentic self. I'm open to that, but I'm not open, and you have to decide for yourself, but I'm not open to changing my authentic self, And then sometimes it's like, I hear you, that you're not comfortable with the way I am, but it's the way I am, So, here we are. And so it may be a bit of an impasse. And so that's just what I wanted to bring a little more awareness into some of these issues. One of my favorite quotes about this is the teacher I work with for many years. I refer to him from time to time in these videos. And he said, no matter what you do, people are going to have issues with what you do. I didn't quite quote it correctly, but no matter what you choose, they're going to have issues with it. So you might as well be what you want to be. You might as well do what you want to do and let them have issues with who you are. You know what I mean? It's like, be your authentic self. And yes, people are going to have issues with your authentic self. I'm sorry to be, you've probably noticed this already, and if not, I'm sorry to be the bearer of this news, but it's like, when you are your authentic self, people are going to have issues with it. However, people are going to have issues with you no matter how you are, so you might as well be authentic and let people have issues with that. So anyway, that is my video for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome week, and maybe just notice, like, when you're being your authentic self, are they embrace it? Are people trying to talk you out of being your authentic self? Hopefully not. But if they are, maybe consider it, but then you get the final word. It's like, no. And don't be afraid to stick to your guns, even if people aren't real happy with you. So anyway, I will see you in a week.